Hey Denchbags, what's going on? It's Landon Remixes here, and it's spring break. This means I'm enjoying a nice cold cup of Lipton tea. Not even Lipton iced tea, just lukewarm. But anyway, it's spring break, which means it's time to pump out as many reviews as I can, which is going to be kind of difficult in a way because I'm going to be gone part of the week, so don't expect a ton coming this week, but expect no less than the regular amount of uploads this week. Anyway, I'm going to get straight into this. Today I'll be reviewing the debut album from Karma Fields. This one is called New Age Dark Age. Now, Karma Fields appeared on the scene about a year ago as a project within Monstercat, kind of appearing as a hacker on one of their Twitch streams, and then released the single Build the Cities featuring the well-known vocalist Curly not too long later. Now, some weird things about the Karma Fields project is absolutely no one seems to know who is in the Karma Fields project. We don't know whether it's a solo artist or a group. It's most probably a group. And featuring names like Talib Kweli, Juliette Lewis, and Curly, you have to know that the people in this group must have some kind of history with the dance music scene or with the general music industry, because there's no way an artist that just pops up out of nowhere could be able to do that. So that's why I most likely think it's a group of producers that kind of joined together to make this maybe 3-person collective known as Karma Fields. I could be wrong about that. Hopefully that'll be revealed to us eventually, but overall this is a pretty solid album, and I actually did review the album on Your EDM, which I'll be doing for most of the Monstercat albums now as well, because I seem to be doing just about every Monstercat release. So I'm going to link that into the description if you want to read it. I'm going to give the same rating basically, so if you don't want to go through me talking about kind of the same thing and giving it the same rating, then I guess don't bother watching this video. But if you do want to watch the video version and see the one on Your EDM as well, then go check that out. I'm not going to have a problem with that. But without further ado, let's get straight into my review of New Age Dark Age. Now, there are a lot of cool concepts on this album. I think its major downfall is that it's constantly trying to push this really distorted and edgy electro sound, and in a lot of cases that gets really repetitive. I think this album is diverse enough that we're getting some different styles, especially on like Greatness with Talib Kweli. It's just a straight hip-hop song basically with a little bit of distortion. Songs like Build the Cities, I don't even know what to classify it as. It has some kind of maybe new disco sounds toward the beginning of the track and then completely flips, just turning it into this kind of minimal house track. On other cases we've got Skyline, which is a progressive house track, and A Bright But Distant Future, which is also a probably more of a main stage appealing progressive house track. And although most of this thing is going to be house, we kick off with Edge of the World, which was actually teased toward the beginning of the Karma Fields project when it was just announced. Now, it starts off with kind of an epic intro with a lot of strings and seemingly choir vocals, which is really cool, kind of leading into this electro drop, which I don't think was overly impressive, but definitely gets you through it. Like, it's a really cool track, and I would have picked a different one as the Monstercat single probably, but they just knew everyone was so hyped for this track. That's probably why they picked it, honestly. And we get into Stick Up featuring Juliette Lewis, which I actually originally didn't like a lot, but since then it's definitely grown on me. I think the edginess of the vocals throughout this whole track makes it really cool. I could probably go out with the profanity on it. I don't mind it in a lot of music, like Kendrick Lamar's music and everything, but I think for this part in this song it's mostly useless. Also, the kind of intro sequence with the vocals is a little bit annoying, really cheesy, like Juliette Lewis mentioning how her name is Juliette. Oh, I didn't kill Romeo. It's like, oh, okay, so a play on your name and William Shakespeare, and okay, yeah, go ahead, but no, it didn't work for me. Definitely different for Morton to be, who's the only featured producer on this album. But it's a cool track, honestly, and I think if they would have taken away the vocal line from this, which a lot of people say is the worst part of it, I think if they would have taken that, it would have been just a pretty bland electro house track, and I think it really enhances it by adding that vocal. On the other hand, we've got For Me, which appears to be one of the fan favorites on this one. This one's a bit slower this time, and it has some pretty cool vocal samples in it over throughout the whole thing, some different speed up parts. Overall, wasn't one of my favorites on the record, probably because I've heard a lot of of music related to this style in the last couple years, so it was a cool track, but definitely not one of my favorite or standout tracks on the record. Now, Skyline, this was the track that got me into Karma Fields. It was the second single from the album and just absolutely blew me away. The structure doesn't seem to go in a standard 4/4 kind of pattern, especially when this track just kind of drops out into this awesome... I don't know how to explain it. You can listen to the song, but that's definitely my favorite part of the track if you haven't heard it yet. Even if you haven't heard it yet, I linked the crap in the description, so go check it out and listen to this one. One of my favorites from the record, Skyline. Fixed also seems to be another fan favorite, very mechanical sounding on this one. Kind of what you'd guess with this track, with the underscore being at the end of the title. There's a guitar line leading up to the drop that heavily reminds me of Aerodynamic on Daft Punk's Discovery album, and that's where I'm getting a couple little vibes on this album. We've got Fixed with that reference kind of leading into this hard, distorted electro drop, and then on another track, which is probably my favorite or second favorite on the album, Skewed, kind of takes on a bit of that style as well. Skewed is one of the coolest tracks on the record, not necessarily because it has the best production value. The drop isn't even really a drop, it's just a really cool set of loops. Since it's so not drop-centric and it's just kind of just pumping the whole way through, it made for one of the coolest listens on the record in my opinion. After Fixed, we've got Greatness, which is probably one of my favorite tracks on the record as well. Super impressed with this one. A lot of people didn't really like it, or they didn't seem to like it before it had dropped. It seemed to grow on people a little bit more. But I never really disliked this one. Really liked the feature from the legend himself, Talib Kweli, who hasn't been really in the industry for a while, but it was definitely cool to hear him on this track. We've got Scandal, another one of my favorites featuring CC Sheffield. And kind of how I explained this on my online review with Your EDM is that Karma Fields kind of cuts up CC Sheffield's vocals in a way that seems almost sexual, and in a way this provides an edge to the track that I don't think it would have had without the vocals. Same way with Stick Up, which I think kind of compares to this track in a lot of ways. Obviously the vocal style isn't really similar, but I think tracks, you can definitely draw comparisons to them throughout. Just a lot of breathing in the track, which is really cool, and just distorted synthesizers throughout. And I think overall it's a really fantastic production, one of my favorites. Then we get into Build the Cities. I already kind of talked about this one. The major thing I'm going to point out is that this is definitely different than the single version, and I actually like this version quite a bit better. There's also a version of the track called Build the Cities Plus that features on it, serving a little bit more as an extended mix, not really extended per se in the term that a lot of DJs would use it, but extended more in a term of vocally. There's a little extra vocal part, and the instrumental is obviously extended in that spot as well, but I really don't think it added much to the track. Definitely loved the original version of the track, but kind of translated to the album. Faint Echoes is another one of my favorites. I've just got favorites all across the board in this middle section of the album. Once again, we've got this heavily distorted electro style, and I think it really works with this track, especially kind of contrasting the more, I'd probably say 80s oriented vocal style of Monarchy, who features on this one. Not much to say about this other than it takes basically the same style that a few of the electro tracks on this one. And then the album closes with, I can't believe we go from one of my favorites on the album to my absolute least favorite, which is A Bright But Distant Future. And it absolutely contrasts everything else on the album, just being the most underproduced yet distorted generic progressive house track I've heard this year probably. There's really nothing exciting about this track, honestly. Honestly, it's really just not working. I think almost any of the tracks on this album, probably Fixed, could have worked a lot better as a outro than we got with this one. So disappointed to say the least with this one, but the fact that the rest of the album is so solid, there wasn't, other than this, there's not a single track I disliked on this thing, but the only picks really other than that were the repetitiveness of the styles in tracks like For Me, Fixed, and Faint Echoes, but honestly it doesn't get too much in the way. This was a really solid album. I'm going to go ahead and slap on a solid 8 for this one. I think it's very well deserved. The picks kind of bring it down a couple points from a 10. And what you think about the album? Let me know in the comments below if you haven't heard it yet. I have the Spotify album link linked below, so go ahead and check that out. Anyway, I'm Landon Remixes. Hope you guys enjoyed this review, and I'll see you later. Peace.